Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at Acadiana Center for the Arts for our second annual State of the Arts, where we will be discussing and focusing on how we value artists here in Acadiana. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Anna Kojevnikov. I'm the Community Development Manager here at Acadiana Center for the Arts, where I assist Gwen Richard, who you probably all met on the way in, with grants administration, plus I also run programs for artists, namely Creative Acadiana, which does networking and professional development and that type of thing. And I have here Jake Falk, who can introduce himself.
I'm the visual arts director, and I work really closely with visual artists here in the community. So I always love partnering with Anna, especially for things like this. I'm a total art geek, and I love to hear what's going on in the sort of relevant topics that we're all talking about in our studios with each other. We did the first of this last year, and we're hoping to continue on doing this every year. In fact, this particular one, this subject matter came from last year's discussion. It was something that people kept talking about, and so we thought we'd revisit it. But we're going to do a little warm-up here.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little exercise.
And it's going to be physical, so
yes.
Get ready.
So we have a series of questions, and it's just a little icebreaker. You don't have to do anything but stand up.
Yeah.
And you want to start us off, Anna?
Sure.
All right.
We are going to get you to stand up if you identify as an artist.
All right. We got a packed house full of artists. Okay.
Miss Stephanie, get up.
Come on. All right, good job, artists. All right. You can sit down now. Yeah. Okay, so now those who identify as a creative, please stand up.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. Fawn, come on now. You know you're creative. All right, there we go. Sweet. Okay. All right, got it.
I also think now let's ask you all to stand up if you are a decision maker in an organization.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, we're dwindling here.
Yeah.
Okay. We got any more on this list?
No, I think that's for the first
stay
one.
standing if you're a gatekeeper.
Ooh.
A gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper.
You have to expound on that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There you go. That's a good question.
Yeah.
You got him talking. There we go.
I mean, this is why we ask, because there's lots of different things that affect us when we're trying to make our art. So this one's going to be a bit easier.
Easier one.
Yeah, we just want to really get an idea of where y'all are coming from.
So, for those who are from Acadia Parish, please stand up.
Oh, we're going to do some
okay.
work.
If you live and work in Evangeline Parish, stand right up.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Some work to do.
Iberia Parish?
Anyone from Iberia
Nobody
Parish?
in the house from Iberia Parish. All right. Lafayette Parish, stand up.
Is it going to be the whole...
Is it from? Yeah. From.
Yeah.
Oh, you work.
I think both. Let's say both. Yeah. Okay.
St. Martin?
The spell correct did not agree with St. Martin, but St. Martin Parish, live or work? Live. All right. There you go. Woo-woo. Yeah, St. Martin Parish. St. Mary Parish.
St. Landry.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Live. Okay, there you go.
And Vermilion.
And Vermilion, there you go, Lex, yeah.
Hey. All right, well, yeah, so obviously we do a really good job of getting our Lafayette crew together, but we clearly need to do more outreach for other parishes. Oh yeah, is anybody here that is not from any of those parishes and is visiting us from outside?
I'm from New Orleans.
There you go, okay.
Oh,
All right.
thanks for joining
Welcome.
us today.
Welcome, Calcasieu. I like that.
All right. Next, we're going to do creative field. So, who here is in performing arts? All right.
All right.
Raise your hand. Stay standing. Raise your hand if
You're a musician. All right, all right. Raise your other hand or a hand if you're in theater. There you go, and a musician, great.
I don't know, we're going to have to get into legs here.
Dancers, legs, yeah, all right.
All right.
Comedians.
Any comedians? Oh, you're a multi-talented lady. Okay.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, next, you can all sit down now, thank
Yeah.
you. Anybody stand up if you are in digital media or video, film, TV. Okay.
Cool.
Hand
All
up
right.
if you're in film.
Hand up, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcasts.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Radio. What else we got?
Web content? Animation.
Content.
Ooh.
Animation.
Animation.
All right. Anything we missed?
Puppetry.
Ooh, that's a
Did
good
you-
one. Yeah.
Well, we might get to that.
What about traditional visual art forms? So I'm talking painters, stand up. Sculptors? What about, why am I flaking on
You.
traditional
This is
art
all
forms?
on you.
Photography. Photography, awesome, well done. What else we got? Printmaking, drawing, printmaking, painting. I think we got them all. Did I leave anything
what
out?
did we miss? Yeah.
Oh, singing, yeah, choral. That's a musician. Yeah. All right, last.
No, not last.
No, not last category. Okay.
I'm gonna add one.
You got to add one.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna say culture bearers.
Ooh, there you go.
Who was a culture bearer, traditional culture bearer. All right. What does that mean to y'all?
There you
Yeah.
go.
It's a kind of a multifaceted participation in a, culture, language, music, including just a multifaceted approach to like including younger people in language, in music, in food, in just the ways we do things.
Does anyone else want to add to that?
Recording and capturing the Creole language here.
Creole language for that recording.
Anna,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I have a music business, but I also work with the deaf and the hard of hearing, and I promote the deaf culture.
Will you be on our accessibility committee? Will you be on our accessibility committee? Thank you.
There you go.
I got your phone.
Right.
All right. We
Our
got,
last one.
yeah, let's do
Okay.
last one.
Literary arts, writers.
Poets.
There we go, poets. Awesome, love it. Poets,
What else we got in literary arts?
novelists,
Novelists.
writers. Awesome, sweet. Thank you all so much for participating. in
Anything that we
Yeah.
missed, though, out of all of those categories?
well, you didn't say any of the design areas.
That's true. Architecture.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, architecture,
Yeah.
graphic design, advertising design,
Yeah.
pretty broad. There you go.
Food.
Food
Yeah.
culture. Yep.
Very good.
Scholars and critics.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Some to add for next year.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. What else we got?
We've got 3 other questions that are kind of, and you don't have to stand up for these. We'll just raise our hands, or actually you don't have to raise your hands, but these are more of questions, reflections that we kind of wanted you to sit with for a second. How many of you came here with a specific question that you were hoping that would get answered today? Okay. How many of you came here for general interest? All right. And who came here for networking, as a networking opportunity? Awesome. Sweet. Well, no lack of excitement today. So we wanted to sort of give this preamble so that to get you kind of thinking. So those who came with a specific question or a general question or networking, we just hope that this discussion and the opportunity to connect with your community sort of satisfies those needs. And with that, I think we'll start rolling along.
Keep all of that in mind, and we'll have opportunities for you all to contribute during the panel discussion. We'll also have a Q&A at the very end, so if it's something that isn't answered throughout or you have questions throughout, please save that for the end. We are going to ask our keynote speaker to join us up here, Mandi Mitchell from the Lafayette Economic Development Authority. Mandi's a really great advocate of the arts. Leigha is our major funder for our ArtSpark individual artist program. And so thank you for supporting us, and thank you for being here today.
Well, good. What time is it? Sam knows why I asked that question, because people like Sam and I work around the clock together to make Lafayette a great place to live, a great place to do business, a great place to be an entrepreneur, a great place to be an artist. And we want to keep that going, and we can only do so if we support you all in the work that you do to make our lives brighter and better and more colorful and more diverse. I felt left out. I couldn't stand up at any of the artist questions. I'm like, man, I've gotten to be a boring person the older I get. I did play the saxophone in junior high and high school, the alto and the tenor sax, so maybe that gets me I'm somewhere in the mix. But just training an engineer with a master's in business, and now I do economic development. So I really have a thirst to partake of the arts. And I was just telling Clare and Miss Grace, one day when things slow down, I can get back to being able to enjoy all the wonderful events that you all host throughout the community, your shows where you're showing off your art, because it matters. It matters tremendously to the quality of life in any community. It matters to the diversity of and richness of our culture. It matters for how children in the community, or what perspectives they have about just life in general, and about engaging with other people who may or may not look like them. And so I am a big, big fan of the arts, and oftentimes I get asked, how is it or why would Leigha engage in so-and-so? So for example, we have this wonderful program called Art Spark. It was the brainchild of Leigha and the Acadiana Center for the Arts. And what it was about was we have artists in the community who may not know that they are entrepreneurs. They're helping to fuel our economy while sustaining themselves through their passion. And what better way to come together and actually help artists understand how to make certain they're doing the absolute best from a business perspective to sustain their art, the delivery and production of their art. And so when I came on board at Leigha about 2.5 years ago, Miss Gwen and Sam and I and Anna visited, and we talked about ways to enhance Art Spark together, ways to continue the program together, ways to enhance the diversity of the participants together. And so I'm very proud of that program and look forward to the continuation of that program. But when I talk to colleagues around the country, they're like, wow, Leigha does all these things that are outside of traditional economic development. Because by the way, economic development's boring, right? We have to ensure businesses locate here, or existing businesses that are here continue to grow, and that people have the skills they need to take advantage of the jobs that are available. Pretty boring stuff, right? But that is what I know. I'm being facetious because I love it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it. But, that's many of my colleagues around the country, that's the box they live in. That's the comfort zone. We step out of our comfort zone because we understand not only the importance of culture and creativity in Louisiana, but we understand the value of it and the mutual benefit of the arts. And I'll say this one thing, and then I'll just share a few key points with you about our organization, Lafayette Economic Development Authority, and about the importance of the arts in our community. But in order for economic developers to be successful, we have to have a community where people want to live. So I cannot tell a business with a straight face, oh yes, if you locate in Lafayette, I'll be able to get the workforce that you need with the skills that you need. If we don't have people across the spectrum that want to live here in this community. So it is about quality of place and quality of life. To me, that goes hand in hand with the core mission of an economic developer. And we, as economic developers, don't have direct control over that, but we know who does. People like you in the room, people like Sam and Miss Gwen and Anna and Jake and Fawn. And so we believe in just supporting, just providing the support to keep it going. So Lafayette Economic Development Authority, in so many words, our job is to make sure Lafayette is a place of choice. And we hope that it's a place of choice, yes, for businesses, large, medium, and small, by the way, women-owned, minority-owned, otherwise owned. We want it to be a location of choice for businesses, but also for individuals who are entrepreneurs, individuals who are creators, individuals who are innovators, right? We approach our mission by working very hard to diversify our economy. I've worked for the state for a long time, so we sometimes at the state level have this debate about supporting, taking taxpayer dollars to support culture, the arts, film, creativity, music, etc. There is that constant debate at the state level, honestly, and that's where a lot of our funding comes from. State level grants, if you will, and I mean I'm saying the arts, foundations. You know, it's a struggle. I know it because I've worked alongside a lot of people, culture, recreation, tourism department, arts organization leaders. There's this constant debate. But for me, and for some who think like me in the field of business and economic development, part of diversifying your economy is, in fact, understanding the value of the arts and investing in the arts. And so that's an important part of what we do at Leigha. What also is important to us is that everyone in our community has equitable access to economic opportunity. And that just means as the pie grows, we want to make sure everyone has the tools, the knowledge, and the skills they need to be able to access the pie as the pie grows. And again, that quality of life again. And we all remember the CREATE initiative. Not going to bore you with that. I'm a firm believer that we have to continue supporting our culture, our recreation, entertainment, the arts across the board, tourism, and of course, all of that feeds into our economic vitality. And these numbers are a bit dated, which tells, I'm gonna share some of this with you, but I will tell you, these numbers have only increased since the last time Leigha commissioned a study on the arts, but the cultural economy in this community supports over 30,000 jobs. That's about 15% of the jobs we have in this community. Approximately $1 billion in household earnings in a single year is generated in some way, shape, or form from the arts. And then our economic output, our GDP, if you will, from our cultural economy is roughly about 1.5 billion. I mean, that's real impact in the world that I come from. So just some of the many ways that Leigha supports the arts. I talked about Art Spark already. We also support Festival International, which we just recently enjoyed. And colleagues around the world are just fascinated that in Lafayette, Louisiana, people from across the globe come to visit and come to partake in this free outdoor music and cultural explosion for 5 days. And we shut down downtown. People just love hearing all about all of our festivals, really, but Festival International, Festival Acadiana et Creole, those are just examples of some of the festivals we support that really perpetuate and preserve and sustain and fuel our culture, right? Our unique culture. South by Southwest, a lot of people say, well, that's in Austin. There are a ton of expats in Austin, and selfishly, I want those people to come back home, bring their knowledge, bring their talent, bring their business they started back here. But our culture, as you all know, is just loved all around the world, regardless of what state we're in. Excited about this, but I'm not gonna steal a whole bunch of Sam's thunder and Andrew Morgan Smith's thunder, but I will say, stay tuned for the Louisiana Music Scoring Initiative. In my opinion, it is going to be a way that we will compete with international destinations that do music scoring for film production. So that's all I'm gonna say, but just stay tuned on that. Obviously, we have a lot of activity happening at Monkus Park, and more to come when a portion of the pavilion, a portion of their overall vision is complete, where we will be able to have live performances. But I hope that artists around the community are engaging in all of our parks, especially when there are opportunities to show your wares or to engage in presentation of the arts. we are working together, and I saw Chasa West is here today, but she was part of the think tank that helped stand up a program that a couple of organizations in the community are doing together, featuring positive stories about Lafayette, about our creative culture, about our people, about our businesses at livability.com. And it is a way to share with the rest of the world, particularly professionals across the world, what your community has to offer. So we support Southern Screen, for example, and others in the film production space. I actually am talking to right now a very reputable film production company that is looking for their next location to expand. And as you know, surrounding film production are many other professionals, many of whom are in this room with the type of skill sets you have that are needed. Louisiana Crossroads, Food Spark, Create, and ABC Art Fund with the Community Foundation of Acadiana. And I'll just say also, really love the arts and education program put on by this organization. I was able to come to the showcase a couple of Saturdays ago. The days run together. Brought my little one, and she had a blast. But just at the end of the day, really, I want to say thank you to all of you for what you do to make our lives way better, way richer, more bright and colorful and fun and lively, and also just the thought-provoking work that you do, the work that requires us to be sometimes introspective, whether you're a writer and you're writing about challenging topics that challenge us to think about things differently. Or if you're an artist and you are painting some aspect of life in Acadiana, or if you are dance, if you're in dance, I see Leigha as well, who is a Northside alum. I have to shout out my Vikings when I see them. 95, dating myself. But if you're, in the performing arts in Clare, thank you all for what you do. We are truly grateful for those of us who don't have those skill sets. We love to partake of all that you do, and we want to be here to be a partner. We want to continue to support and fuel your passion into the work that you do. So thank y'all for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandi. And truly, we couldn't do Art Spark without your and Leigha's support. And we're doing so much outreach because of the support that Leigha offers us. We definitely have had one of our most successful, I think, years this year with our Art Spark lineup. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all the projects that come out of that this year. All right. This is a good one. So we are going to get you to do one more physical activity. I want you to stand up if you have ever applied for an Art Spark grant.
Directly, or like someone was involved?
Directly.
Okay.
Yeah. Stay standing. All right. Now stay standing if you have received an Art Spark grant. Pretty good odds there. And now stay standing if you have received more than one Art Spark grant. Oh, look at you three. Congrats, y'all. Right, so now we're going to move on to the main portion of today's event. So as we know, this is the State of the Arts symposium. It's part of our Creative Acadiana programming, which I do really want to acknowledge our funders for this, which is the Atchafalaya Natural Heritage Area. They've been coming through to support us in the Creative Acadiana program for the last 2 years and hopefully longer. So stay tuned on that. I'm going to do a quick introduction of the panelists. I'm not going to get into details because all of you should have a copy of this bio sheet, but there will be opportunities for our panelists to dig into more of their experience. So I'm just going to go my right to my left. So first off, probably doesn't need much introduction, but here we have Samuel Oliver, the Executive Director of the Acadiana Center for the Arts. We have Mo Prejean and Edward Montana IV, who are in a group called Armed Rhymery, plus they're multidisciplinary artists. Next, we have Dean Joseph Moore of the College of the Arts. We have Trey Boudreaux, musician, composer. Then we have Chief or Nanta Cougar Goodbear, who's the chief of the Shanashitine tribe. We have Clare J. Ami, educator, visual artist, professor over at UL. Kathy Reed, visual artist, two-time Art Spark awardee. Has done a lot for the community within arts administration in previous years. We have Leigha Porter, movement artist, founder of Heritage Park, Park Village, Creole Nutcracker, what else? Next we have Josiah Price, theater director, actor, film, all sorts of stuff, yeah, a little bit of film. And last but not least, Clare Cook, founder of Basin Arts, who will be moderating this panel. I just want to remind all of the panelists here that I am going to ask you to take the microphones off your stands and speak directly into them so that we get a clear recording. It is one microphone per two people. So Claire, thank you for being here and for taking on this role for us today. And yeah, look forward to hearing this discussion.
All right, I'm on. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Anna and Jake and Sam and ACA. Small anecdote, which will give you an insight into how my brain functions. When they first asked me if I wanted to host this panel, I immediately started to look at my Google schedule at Basin Arts. Okay, if we have 30 minutes to move the chairs before Art Walk, and then they said, no, not physically host it, like talk. I was like, oh, that's so much easier. So this is like how we all function in this community, wearing a million hats. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I want to thank all of the panelists for being involved as well. A couple of things just to sort of frame the conversation. The first thing is, and I actually am borrowing this from Hellenius Wilkins, who is a choreographer that has spent quite a bit of time in our region. It's recently a project that the ACA and Basin presented. But in a lot of the conversations in community that Hellenius held, he would use this phrase called speaking in draft. So I want to offer that to our panelists and to the room in the sense of we are all a huge community of artists. We're very familiar with creative process, but at the same time, a reminder and an invitation that everything that is said here is part of a process for making our community stronger, more open, more connected. So taking everything you receive and everything you give as an opportunity to share, begin, learn, engage, and evolve. So nothing is finite. So just a reminder that it's a safe space to say what you feel, and we're not going to judge anybody for what they say. We're going to be open around that. And then I think building upon Mandi's address and information and invitation for what she's offered is to sort of bring the idea that a community and an artist community is only as good as the sum of its parts. So I think today, beginning the day with Mandi, sort of looking at that macro level, like how are we coming at it from a bird's eye view, from a funding perspective, from a community activation and value around like sort of a civic economic development space. I hope, and I think that this panel will sort of come at it from the other side of the surface. So looking at all of us, whoever's up here is representing all of us, and whoever's out here is going to be welcome to engage as well. We are the parts, you know, we make up the individual parts, we make up the whole parts of disciplines, industries, organizations. So an invitation to just remember that the sum of the parts is stronger together. And so hopefully today's conversation here will allow us to dig into the individuals, but as they represent the collective. Anything else before we start? Okay. So we're here to talk about the value of artists in Acadiana. It's always a question of what does value mean? Can be defined in so many ways. Financial, am I getting paid? Am I not getting paid? Who's showing up? Who's not showing up? What's the economic impact? What's the relationship that was established? So I will kind of just always toss the questions out unless it feels very specific to one person, and then whoever grabs the microphone first, I guess, can jump in and we'll build from there. But I think offering this question to the panel, starting from the positive. So can you share a way in which you feel valued as an artist in this area, and kind of how you consider value? One last thing, when you speak for the first time, if you feel like you want to reintroduce briefly like what you do or sort of give a little bit of context, feel free to do that. So how do you feel valued, and how do you evaluate value in your creative life in Acadiana?
I guess I'll kick it off. I'm Mo, y'all. I'm one half of Arm Rhymery, hip hop artist, but like it says, I like my label, multidisciplinary artist. I like that. I would say I feel valued a lot. You know, to start with the positive, like I've had an opportunity to do a lot of really cool things out here. I've performed at festival a couple times. I've performed at the Mardi Gras Festival at Cajun Field. I've just done a lot of cool stuff out here. Clare recently was part of a huge opportunity I had to do a residency at Basin Arts. I've had some really cool stuff happen with ACA where they do the performing arts, educational performing arts, where they've brought us out to different schools to do things. So like I've had some really cool experiences out here that it feels good, like as an artist doing something in quote unquote like an official capacity. You know, we all kind of like build ourselves up to want to do those things, but it's cool whenever you get to like feel like, okay, like I'm actually, you know, I'm making strides in like in an official capacity. Not that an unofficial capacity is any less important, but I would say that's some of the ways that I felt appreciated here. And of course, like the people, I've gotten a lot of love from like just the community in general. But as far as like the quote unquote arts community, as far as like those that are in positions to shed light on artists and kind of give us that platform to do the things that we love on a professional level, those are some of the ways that I felt appreciated. So there's definitely some cool things moving out here that I think give a lot of opportunities to artists, especially places like ACA and places like Basin Arts. So that's my little spiel. Anything to add, Ed?
Thank you, Mo.
Yeah.
Kathy?
Okay, I feel really valued as an artist by just being asked to be in a situation like this and have my opinion and my ideas listened to, and it helps any artist to feel seen and heard. And thank you guys for the invitation. Really appreciate it. At this point in my life, I'm an older artist. I've been around, I've done a lot of things, had a lot of experience presenting art, and I was lucky enough to have several day jobs so that my experience was not having to just sell my work to make a living, although I've had to do that at times. But I feel really valued at this point in my career to have people just come and look at my artwork. The kind of things that I do are maybe not the kind of things you might see about Acadiana necessarily, but I'm really serious about what I'm doing. Now that I'm retired from teaching, I have a lot more time, but the problem is, you know, you've got to make the work and you've got to evaluate it and then put it out there somewhere. But I think having, as an artist, having the community come and just be part of what you're doing, it makes you feel very valued. And I appreciate experiences like the project space residency that I did with Steve and Mayor at Basin Arts. That was such a wonderful out-of-the-box kind of thing for us because, you know, we've had shows before where you just present your work, it's hanging on the wall, and whoever comes to see it. But this required a whole different way of approaching presenting what you're doing, and it was spontaneous in a lot of senses, just making it happen. And really appreciate the organizations like Basin Arts and the ACA that present artists. I think that we really need to value our arts organizations. In the past, I was part of an organization called the Artists Alliance. We started what we were doing because there was no time, there was no place. This was like in the 80s during the oil boom, the mid-80s. Some of you weren't even born, probably. But we were a group of people who had, most of us graduated from UL, which was USL at the time. We had a great art department, and most of us were still producing work, and there was nowhere to show contemporary artwork. There was maybe a couple of places in town that displayed things that were very unlike what we had been taught, and it was very frustrating to have work and to make work, but there's nowhere in this area to show it. So this was a grassroots organization led by people like Tina Gerard, Dickie Landry, who had started, had been part of other organizations that were similar in New York. So we had that going for us, but I really miss having such a vital group of people working together and making it happen. That was great, but we really appreciate you guys they're putting things together for us.
Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else want to chime in on? Before we sort of continue to evolve, any other thoughts about how you feel valued and what value means to you as an artist?
I think I feel valued as an artist when what's important to me or what I've created, people gravitate towards it, or people appreciate it or like it. Being in a creative space, a lot of times we bring a lot of our personal, personal attachments to our art. No matter if it's dance, it's painting, like we are creating things that we want people or the world to see. And so sometimes people can love it, sometimes people cannot love it. But when people gravitate towards it and feel connected to something that you feel connected to, it makes you feel like the work that you're creating is necessary.
Thank you. Claire?
I think it's interesting that we're here at an economic development because we do understand the economic value of the arts and the creatives, but I think what I value as an artist and a human is that the arts allows us to be untethered from the economy in some ways, and that we can, arts are tied to, and education's tied to the labor market, right, in this way, but the arts also has space that exists on the opposite side of that, where we are just humans and experiencing things. And so that's really the value added, is the experience of the arts and experiencing and participating in community. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Trey.
Hey y'all, Trey. Yeah, off of that, despite the twin elephants that are ever presently, sitting on the couch of, do we have to justify our existence with capital or, make an audience comfortable and dilute art to, dilute art to maintain a comfortable audience rather than challenging them, despite those two twin elephants that we're always dealing with in the back of our head. I feel so lucky, and in terms of personal value, I lived in New Orleans for about 10 years. I grew up here. And when I came back in 2018, it was really incredible to have an opportunity to put my feet back down at home and enjoy and reestablish connections I've had since I was very young, and also build new relationships with artists and all of the people peripheral to our art in our community, and like really see a living, breathing community that I have received a lot of support from, and I've had opportunities to really offer support to my friends who are making art and we're living about this art. This art is about a thing that we are living. And, my short tenure living in New York, I love New York City. I make time for it every year, but I remember speaking to people who never wanted to talk about where they were from. And they're like, wow, you really like talking about where you're from. And I feel very lucky to be able to say that. So just the value of the community and the enclave of people surrounding the artist community, the real appreciators who show up to see what's real about it and what's happening and how that reflects in the arts. I do enjoy that.
So I'm going to kind of segue, thank you, into the next layer of this idea. And a lot of you up here, very specifically and intentionally, are up here because you wear many hats. You are a creative, you are in a creative process as an artist, but you're also a decision maker or a gatekeeper. It sounds such an evil word. I said, we are gatekeepers, but our gates are open, right? But the idea of you're in a position to not only intimately know how to work in a creative process, but you're also in a position to be giving other people opportunity. And the spectrum of that. I think all of you represent that in some way or another. And so sort of carrying that idea forward, and ideas, thoughts, questions, comments around that, how do each of you or some of you take your intimate experience of your own artistry into a decision-making process, whether you're shaping a curriculum or an academic program or an opportunity for young artists or any age artist? How are you carrying, what about your experience as an artist informs the way you are a leader in the arts community?
I'll speak on that. Yeah, something like that. I think it's like a responsibility to kind of look at where you've been, kind of the struggles you might have faced early, or the information you didn't have. I think for me, I was blessed because like I'm from New Orleans, so when I first came to Lafayette, I knew nothing. I didn't know anybody, and just me working with Mo, like she introduced me around. She was like, hey, this guy does this guy, and that kind of is the beginning stages of how you can help. Well, for us, for sure, as music artists, it's how we can help introduce younger artists, and kind of get them acquainted and help them kind of, see about different opportunities. A lot of times I find that, like even us having the opportunity to do something at Basin and have our residency, you find that some people didn't know. And so sometimes it's the lack of information that's really holding back some of the really talented people. They just don't know what's out there. And even sitting here today, I've already learned about a few things that I didn't know. So it's like, I think that's the biggest thing is the information, and just to make it accessible. And so that's always been our thing, is like including people and just kind of trying to reach as many as we can, just offer them the information. Whether or not you use it is up to, you know, each individual, but at least you could just make sure it's out there for people to be able to know, you know, and that, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Josiah. I do want to piggyback off of that because I do think accessibility is very important. I also have heard a common theme here. Community is very important to, I think, all of us here. I also was born and raised here in Lafayette and lived in New York for about 6 years, and then returned. I really didn't want to return. It was because of COVID and some other things that had happened. So I was a little bitter for a while. I didn't want to participate in anything going on here. But then, you know, I'm also in the hospitality industry, and I'm very good at it because I'm from here, and people are so sweet and genuine and awesome and really care about you and want you to succeed wherever you're at and whatever you're doing. And I'm very fortunate to have, or to be surrounded by people like that all the time. So I've come out and started, you know, to direct shows and audition for shows. And now I have the pleasure of substituting for one of my friends, Monique Morton, who's a talented theater teacher for LPSS. She just had a baby a couple weeks ago, so I am taking care of her kids for the rest of the school year. And the biggest thing that I'm doing is just, you know, having conversations with them about things that they can be doing right now for, you know, everyone, like open to everyone. There are opportunities at places like Park Village and Basin Arts and everything else where you can be involved and see people doing what you're doing who look like you. And being able to access those spaces and talk to those people and make those connections is very valuable. I think that's also what we're talking about here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd also like to second the education theme here. I worked for LPSS Talented Art for quite a while. I was an art educator for 25 years. What they had before the talent program started was the High School Arts Academy. And my goal as a teacher was to help the students try to find their own individual voices and have them learn how to think critically and be exposed to lots of different opportunities to do that. And I think that I did teach a lot of kids who became artists later, but the main thing, if you're going to have a community that supports the arts, you need to educate them, and that's what the ACA is doing a great job with, is education. You know, just exposing little kids to performances, exposing them to art in their schools, all of that, to me, is so important, because that's how you build the audiences for art, as well as maybe helping kids who are going to be artists. And we need to support what these organizations do in that regard. I really appreciate what you're doing.
I think our personal experiences informs like our decision making, whether we see it or not. I was very fortunate as a young person, as a young performer. Dance has always been a part of my creative practice. That's how I kind of entered into the space I'm in now. I had the honor and pleasure of training with Miss Grace Hamilton for 16 years. And there we did a lot of traveling. We traveled to the International Association of Blacks in Dance. That's where I first got to see Alvin Ailey and Dallas Black Dance, people that I would not have had the opportunity to see here in Lafayette. And so as growing up, of course, being a young artist, not wanting to come home or not wanting to stay home, at some point when you mature, you think, how can I bring those opportunities here, right? And so that way, I want to create a space where I want to stay, you know, and where other people want to stay as well. And so thinking about the experiences that I had as a young dancer, as a young performer, and then thinking about, for me, how can I take a step further and then bring more of those opportunities here? I had those opportunities to go outside of Lafayette and experience that. How can I take those opportunities and bring them back here? And then hopefully, you know, the next generation will think about how to take it a step further, you know. But I think every decision that I've made as a creator, because when people ask me now, well, what do you do? I always say I'm a creator in constant transition, because I'm always creating something new, whether it be dance, whether it be access, but always thinking about what are the spaces that you would have loved to have whenever you were a teenager, or whenever you were in college, or even now as an adult? What opportunities are you still looking for? What are things that you still want to see, you know, here? Like, I would love to see Black theater presented here. And we're starting a program called BTE, which is the Black Theater Experience. So that way we can see more Black theater work done here. So always thinking about like what is it that you would want at every stage of your life? And then thinking about how that can be created.
I just want to give an extra shout out for Leigha, too. An incredible thing she did, an incredible experience she gave to some of her students when she brought them to New York just last month, which included, she bought ad space in Times Square featuring her students and brought them to Times Square to see their faces, to see their pictures in the middle of everybody. It was awesome.
And I do want to say something about that, because, you know, being from a small city, it is hard to see yourself outside of where you are. There's a quote that says, you can only see as far as where you're standing. And so it's so important for kids to be able to dream and have the space to be able to see themselves past just Lafayette, which Lafayette is great, right? But seeing themselves in a bigger space and a bigger light.
How much did it cost?
Oh, it was very cheap. It was only like $40 for 10 seconds, and I got a lot of seconds.
How much do you think those kids thought they were worth?
Oh my God, they still talk about it. Like,
I bet they thought it was $1 million worth of value.
I've never, and it's so hard to get kids to be excited about anything these days. They were excited. Like, I cried from seeing their reaction, because I was like, oh my God, I didn't expect them to react at all. So it was a beautiful experience.
I just think it's an incredible example of creating value and showing value for young people. And I mean, it still gives me chills when I think about it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I think a lot of what has been said already today is sort of this idea of we need to mirror ourselves, or we need a mirror to see ourselves in our greatest value. And thinking about, is that something that someone is doing for us? Is that something we're doing for someone else? And it's really hard sometimes to see your value as an individual, but as a community too. I was making some notes from Mandi's conversation, and again, just from that sort of that macroeconomic development standpoint, and then taking it down to more of this creative process-driven community conversation. We don't always see what we're doing. Like, we're doing it every day. All of us in this room, we're in the making of something, whether it's a piece of art, whether it's community, whether it's a curriculum, all those things, we're making it every day. And I think, I would say that's a Lafayette thing, not just an arts thing, you know, but we're right in the heart of always building something, because we see what's possible and we see the space for it, and we're also fearless or crazy, whatever you want to call it. We're like, oh, I'm gonna make that, you know? And so we're always in the making. So I think curious about sort of the next question is like the what's missing, or what are the steps in between. But Mo had mentioned something like feeling valued when she's presented or received in some sort of official capacity. And so there's definitely a need for all of us, that's a human need, to feel recognized from somewhere outside of yourself, you know, and that's, for better or worse, you know, we can journal about it all day long. You want to feel validated by someone besides yourself. And so what are panelists, and then I'm sure questions, we can get into that in a bit, but like, what are the ways in which you still feel like you're missing or wanting more of or needing more of for that mirror, like opportunity, officialness, funding? Like, what are the mirrors that you're not finding, or ways in which you're feeling like you need people or programs or organizations to see you differently, or more, to see more, however that might be.
I think I'll say, like, obviously Lafayette is like just Acadiana area in general. It's like we have an unusual amount of artists here. Like it's not normal. Like we have a lot of talent. Like literally any medium of art that you can name, there's people here that do it, and like not just on a regular scale either. Like they do it at a level that should be recognized, like all over the place. And sometimes I don't feel like that's obvious. Like if you just came to Lafayette for the first time and you didn't drive down, like downtown obviously looks super cool and it looks artsy and stuff like that, but like if you just, you know, pulled into Lafayette for the first time, you flew in, it doesn't really scream like there's a bunch of artists here, this is a super artistic place, this is a breeding ground for talent, everybody here is, you know, practically an artist. Like, you know, like it doesn't really scream that to me. So sometimes I just wish that was more of a thing here, and I really think it could be beneficial for Lafayette on like a financial level at the same time. Obviously, we're artists, you know, we care about the art, you know, when it comes to like city government and the state government and stuff like that, they care about the funds, the money. I mean, it has to do with that. I'm not saying that they don't care about anything else, but that's what it boils down to a lot of times. And I feel like I wish that they would recognize that, like, hey, y'all actually would make a ton of money if y'all actually put more into the artists out here. When you go to Denver, Miami, New Orleans, like name any big city, San Diego, LA, New York City, whatever, any place, Chicago, you drive into these places, there's art all over the place, everywhere. Everywhere you look, it looks artistic. There's all kinds of artistic stuff all over the place, whether these are programs, whether this is literally like businesses and places that you can go into and experience art, whether it's music venues, whatever it is, whether it's just them commissioning people to go do murals outside. Like, I mean, we go to Denver all the time. Like, a lot of times we don't even pay to go do stuff. We just walk around. Like, I mean, it's, you know, and I just feel like Lafayette's missing that a little bit, and I even spoke about this with Clare, at an interview I did at Basin Arts. You know, the north side, I mean, we could talk about that all day, but I feel like this is where you drive into. If you drive into Lafayette for the first time, if you fly into Lafayette for the first time, you're on the north side, and it's the most neglected part of the whole city. So I always thought that was weird, you know, because I just feel like it should really scream like you're in an art mecca when you come into Lafayette for the first time, I feel. You know, like, I don't know what that exactly would entail. I mean, I think it would require a lot of teamwork, but that in itself, I feel like is a big thing. Just like visually, I wish Lafayette would put more into like just making it look like what it is, you know, like, it shouldn't just look like that only for Festival International, when in reality, that's what it is all the time. It's just a lot of people, I know a lot of people who are like incredible talents out here that have gotten discouraged and stopped. Like literally, you know, I've been doing music since I was 15 years old. I turned 30 at the end of last year, and I'm just now seeing some of the results that I've been wanting to see since I was 15. So this is a long game as an artist, but I don't feel like, you know, in some ways Lafayette is lacking in the things to make a person feel like they can persevere and they can accomplish something with their art. It feels like, well, you know, I have to go get a job. I have to, you know, like, and I have to stop doing this because I don't have time to do it. And even when going down to teenagers, you know, when you're in school, if your plan is not, you know, go to college, whatever, do something conventional, it's crazy. Like I was laughed at. I mean, I had my family looking at me like I was crazy, you know. And now they're proud. I mean, I'm not knocking them, because I feel like if God gave me a vision, I don't expect everybody else to see it. But I'm serious, you know, but at the end of the day, maybe they would see it if this was more of a, if more emphasis was put on like how important art is. Like I always tell people, I feel so honored to be a musician because it's the only universal love language when you think about it. This is one of the only things you can say that every person likes music. You rarely ever would meet somebody like, oh, I don't like music, no type, no kind. Like, you know, that would just be, like, that would be crazy. You know, down to like, if we go back to ancient people, they had some form of music, you know. So art is something that every person enjoys. It's something that heals people, and it makes people feel good, and everybody wants to experience it. But sometimes nobody wants to, like, you know, nurture it and fund it. And so I kind of just feel like that's something that Lafayette is lacking. It's not missing altogether, it's just lacking. You know, like we have ACA that does a lot of amazing things. I've had a lot of cool opportunities here to do cool things. You have people like Clare, you have people like Leigha. Like there's a lot of cool people doing things out here, but you know, we need 100 of those things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I just feel like that's what I would like to see. I would like to see literally like tax dollars put towards those things. You know, when we can put tax dollars towards things that you look at and you're like that much was put towards that. You know, I feel like some of those things need to be just rethought and rebuilt in a way that like actually would help Lafayette. If you came here and it just like overall looked and felt really cool and felt like what it is, which is an art mecca, then I feel like more people would visit here, more people would want to live here. Like, you know, Ed and I are in the process right now of like saving up to relocate. It's sad, you know, and not forever, you know, but you know, like we're planning on moving to Denver. There's a bunch of music venues out there. It's like you can easily sustain as a hip hop artist out there. That's not easy out here, you know. Like we threw a show a couple weeks ago. I lost money, you know. I didn't really care about it because I did it I wanted people to have an experience. And so I accomplished my goal. I was perfectly fine with that. I knew that was going to happen because of what I wanted to do. But it's just like, you know, you can't sustain that way. And so I feel like when people feel like they have to go do other things and it's taking up their whole day, like it's hard working 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week and then still have to go home and try to make content, write music, and be in a creative mood, you know. And I just feel like if there were more opportunities for an artist to just like, we don't want to be rich, we just want to like be able to pay our bills, you know. If there was more opportunity like that here and the infrastructure of the city was just more built around like the things that people want to experience the most in life, which is for a lot of people is some form of art. I just think that would make this like a happier place, honestly, and a place that more people who do things like what we want to do and are unconventional, like they would want to stay here, you know, instead of being like, well, I got to go find where I can do this, you know. So that's what I want to see. You need the.
I was just gonna say, I love that idea of, you know, make Lafayette look like what it is. Because it doesn't always, and there's some spaces where it does, but you know, it's not everywhere. I saw Chief Cougar nodding his head a bunch over there. I wondered if he had something to say.
Okay. My experiences here is like it's crazy. So growing up, I actually was learning the culture, everything, medicinal plants, all this stuff here in Lafayette. And you know, and I know many of you do not know this, that there are Apaches here in Lafayette. And that's our situation now. Like, I am 45 years old. So I grew up also with art, making my own toys, for example. And I was born in 1974, so imagine that, I was still making my own toys. They didn't do that only in like 1960s or something like that. But yeah, we made our own toys. We did what we had to do. We have a culture here that people don't know about. What's a shanashetana? Nobody knows. Because this culture was hidden, put under the table, keep them there. Okay? So we have a culture, we have art, we have basketry, we have pottery, we have dances, we have songs, not in English, not in French, in Apache. All this is preserved. We have drums that are ours. It's not anyone else's, it's different. And drumsticks, totally different. And yet we have people like a youth. I think you know my little niece, maybe? Larry?
Yeah, she graduated from the conservatory.
Exactly.
Amazing dancer.
Yeah. Beautiful dancer, amazing. But she's going to the university for nursing, actually. Because growing up, you're taught the art is not gonna help you get money. The art is not gonna support you. This is in our culture. And so, and I was disappointed in that she, you know, but yeah, she loves dancing. She loves dancing. Beautiful dancer. And so she said, well, I'll take dancing as a minor, I think, yeah. So that's one of the things. For us, we're still back there where art isn't functional for you because you're not looked at as being valuable as an artist. It's always someone else. So, and she's not the only one. There's also another young lady who she's a CNA. Now, many of us are also in the medical field. She's a CNA, and she's a beautiful painter. And she also makes jewelry. And she's an adult, but she tells me, I can't make a living doing this. I have to, you know, I'm doing my CNA thing. This will be a hobby or an off-side thing. Now she is, she was in BR. She moved from BR to Lafayette. And she's looking for work. And I keep trying to, you know, push her to, hey, you know, do your painting, do your jewelry, metallurgy, and all that. And yeah, she's still like bouncing back and forth in her mind, like, am I gonna be able to pay my bills? And she tells me this like straight out, am I gonna be able to pay my bills, you know, to paint here? Where am I gonna, and I try to bring her to places like this, and she has appeared at one event. But I was quiet because I don't want to be negative in some things. But in our perspective, well, in the Shawnee perspective, it's very bad. But thanks to ACA, I have reached out. Let's put it like this. My ancestors, my grandparents, great-grandparents, all of them, they would not do anything like this. They would not come up and speak to an audience about anything because of our situation. I was the only one that decided, okay, we need to bring our culture into the light so people will know that we're here. We always been here. That's another thing. Lafayette is an indigenous desert, so to speak. Although there are indigenous people still here. And so, you know, I decided, okay, let's bring our culture to the light, you know. Miss Clare. I don't want to sing you out or nothing like that. But she, from UL, she did come with this industrial designer.
Yes, he was an industrial designer.
Yeah, he was an industrial designer, so he came over to talk with us to actually learn about our basketry, like how do we weave the baskets and stuff like that. And it was what it was. It was, yeah. We're trying to not let anyone take what's left. You know, we don't mind, you know, showing, but it has to benefit us as well. Yes. It can't just benefit one person. Also, that happened. Also, yeah, I was a recipient of NPN. By the grace of God, I'm like, wait, what? So that happened, and we're trying to have our own space. We are downtown right now, 400 Lee Avenue, and we wanted to make a museum to show the tribes all the artifacts that we preserved for generations, all of this stuff. And it couldn't happen because we didn't own the property. So we had to own the property, and the one that owns the property would have to would rezone the property and change, and it's an old house. So it'd have to change the house and everything. And understandably, that person is not up to doing all that. It's a family home, it's an old home. But, you know, stuff like that. So thanks to NPN, so I'm just answering like the earlier question, the value. So our value, or my value, is for my people as well. For myself, for my people, because of my position. And I want to, you know, let them have a space and a place in the art world here. We did Festival International, and we performed Saturday. We did 3 dances that nobody ever seen before. That we used our own drums, we used our own music. It was social dance, warrior dance, and a bear dance. And Larry was there, and this young man who stepped up, he's 21 years old, he also stepped up and he wore the bear. The bear is sacred for us. It's a black bear. And he wore the bear and he danced. And I was so proud of him because he actually said, yeah, I'll do it, you know. So we were like really proud of him for doing that. So keeping the youth and having them to, you know, like see themselves as artists and being in a place that artists are valued and that they can thrive and survive here in this place, well, in Lafayette, in the city, is necessary because we lose a lot of people. We lose many people, artists that, you know, they don't see their value here, and they leave, actually leave. And there are many from my community that have left because of certain circumstances and stuff like that. And so, but apart from that, the ones who stay, those 2 young gentlemen back there, the ones who stay, they're helping preserve and being resilient, you know, as a people. Sorry.
Thank you.
What's tuition cost at UL, Dean?
So, okay, Sam, no, come on. It's a state university, you know, the tuition is, I think, as far as state universities go, reasonable, but I don't want to talk about tuition. I want to talk about the mythology that I think some of us in this room continue to buy into about the arts and how valuable the arts are, how that they're apparently they or society, perhaps in a broad sense, there's not an appreciation for the arts in terms of value, in terms of monetary possibilities. So I got to read from this because I want to, and this isn't new information for me, and I've been fighting this battle for a long time, but let me just get right to what I want to, the point I want to make. So GDP for the arts and culture, nonprofit and commercial, and the commercial sector now tops $1.1 trillion. Okay, $1 trillion. And this isn't, you know, this isn't this anecdotal data. You know, this is from the Americans for the Arts, and they collect this data, and you can find it. I don't even know how many zeros are in $1 trillion. I don't even know. I don't know, but I think it's a lot of them, right? So, and more, and as important, 5.2 million jobs. Okay, that's a big deal, and like anything else, it's not easy. And Mo, you all, and that you shouldn't feel, you know, guilty about leaving if you have to leave to go to get what you need to get to be successful, because I'm sure you'll come back. Oh yeah. You know, and I don't say that to suggest that there are no opportunities here in Lafayette. You got to figure out what those are and how you can make those opportunities, right? But it is truly, the you know, it's bothersome for me because I've been in higher education now for a long time after working in professional practice as a designer and illustrator, and that wasn't easy being a freelance illustrator right out of college. So yeah, you got to pay the bills, you got to eat, and you were talking about your niece, I think. But there are jobs out there. There are jobs. We have to do a better job of making sure aspiring creative people know that the jobs are out there. And we have to provide a platform for them to be prepared to go out and get those jobs. And so in terms of value, and it's not about me, but what I hope that we're doing at the university is providing a platform for students to be prepared to go out and at the highest level in the arts, you know, compete for these jobs, because there are jobs out there. I see them every day. Are they all located here in Lafayette? Not necessarily, right? I mean, you know, Lafayette, I don't know, what's the population here? Sam, do you know the population? About 150,000. Oh, okay. So not a small town, I would say. Big town. Big town, right. Big town, there you go. That's a theme, right? Big town, is that part of the big town thing? So, but like anything else, you know, you hear the term entrepreneurial, you know, tossed about a bit. Clare is a great example of being entrepreneurial, coming back to Lafayette with Basin Art, right? It's a thriving, you know, center for the arts across the disciplines, right? So nobody gave that to you. There was a process for that, right? And we've got to we have to inspire not just young people, but folks who are creative to do that work, and so that they can get to a place, and hopefully they can carve out, you know, careers for themselves, because that's what it's about. How do you carve out a life for yourself in the arts? Not an easy thing. There was commencement today. I should know the number of graduates from the College of the Arts, but I don't. But there was a lot of them, and you know, they've got everything right out in front of them. So we must be optimistic, realistic, and provide them. I think the term someone said talked about access. I think Sam, you talked about that. That's a critical part of how to prepare these folks. So I just wanted to say that. And really, and when I say we, I'm not pointing at you all out in the audience necessarily. I take that as a big responsibility of mine as a dean of the College of the Arts, to make sure that students know, okay, these are the opportunities out there. This is what you have to do to prepare for it. Nobody's going to give you anything, but hopefully they'll give you access. But then you've got to bring the rest. And you know, the proof is in the pudding. These numbers are real numbers. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. We need to always be talking about that. And any examples that we have, we need to always provide those platforms. You took those kids to New York City. I'm sure that was transformative for them. And not to mention being in Times Square on the billboard. So anyway, I've talked enough. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know I definitely want to leave time for questions, and I'm conscious of time, but I might want to put one more idea to the panel, and maybe we'll throw it out to the group. I mean, everyone here has a totally different lived experience being from this community. Speaking personally, I grew up here, left for a while, came back, but I've now, interestingly, been back in this community almost as long as I left. So it's an interesting flip for me to see progress. Like it's, and I think everybody can probably speak to that conversation of watching things over time. And I'm curious, but what I see, I'm curious from all of you, but what I see is that entrepreneurial spirit that we always talk about in Lafayette across every sector is real. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas putting them in motion. And from when I think back to growing up here as a young person and to now, I mean, it seems, and feel free to debate this, but it seems like we have more endeavors, more organizations, more opportunities, more agencies, and there can always be more. But it does feel like as an arts community, there's a lot of pockets and a lot of patches of a quilt that exist now than maybe there were prior. And it feels like an opportunity in a moment, and I'm curious about how competition or saturation comes into play in this community from the business entrepreneurial conversation, and how as an arts community we lean into that, fight against that, work with it, because I think that if we look at evolution of a community, a way to not just keep doing the same thing over and over is to start stitching those patchworks together. And how are we resource sharing and building upon, because that's where groups get stronger. And so I'm curious from the panelists first, anybody, just how you navigate, I mean, because it's real stuff. Like there's money, you know, and people need it to do things, and then we're all applying for the same grant, or what, you know, just simple examples. But like, how are we navigating ways and strategies to work cohesively, but also not sacrifice our individuality or our mission, or sort of like ideas around equity and things like that? Like, how do we envision working together to continue to build in the midst of those capitalistic sort of business ideas that exist everywhere, you know, for better or worse?
I'll take whoever's mic. No. But no, to that, I really did want to speak on that, because I think sometimes I feel like we in an area that's very culturally diverse and just like artistically diverse, but like the general sometimes like reception seems very like we try to play it safe sometimes, of like, we know the people are gonna like this, so let's just go that way. It's like, but I think we kind of approaching this new kind of Renaissance era where everything looks completely different because of the tools we have. So I feel like kind of also being open to something different. Like me and Mo do hip hop, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like everybody's just loving hip hop, you know, it's not like the biggest forefront thing, but I feel like we've been able to take it and spin it in a way to where it could be palatable for somebody that doesn't like hip hop, you know? And so it's like, I think it's the artist's responsibility to, if you have something that's not to the status quo, like, you know, if you're not making the Zydeco record, or, you know, whatever the record that people automatically are gonna go to, and you have something that's different, the artist's responsibility is to make it palatable for the people to be able to take it in. And then on the opposite side, the people have to be open to say, okay, this is something new, but I like it. You know what I mean? Something like that. So I think it's a work on both ends to just, like, we got to kind of find that middle ground of where we can all kind of work together, you know?
I think we're all real conditioned where we are in space and time to believe that this idea of scarcity, right, there's not enough of slices of pie to go around. And through teaching and learning and just education, I think that there's this mind shift, right? And it can happen in the community where the shift is not one of scarcity, right? And that's tied to sort of a capitalist economy, right? But that we can have this idea that more is more, right? And if I have more pie, then we also all have more pie. And I think being in positions of leadership, especially it is important with that mind shift. So we're not necessarily competing for the same money. You know, if we're receiving grants or around, then it can become an opportunity for collaboration and shared resources and sort of mutually beneficial opportunities for everyone that's involved. And so I think that's just an important sort of leadership mind shift to have in spaces where less isn't, you know, we're not getting less if you get more, right? So.
And to add to that, that's like super true actually, because I've never received an ArtSpark grant, but I've been part of a program that was funded by an ArtSpark grant, where we made a program for kids that involved hip hop and dance against gun violence. And then I've also, the residency I did with Clare, I didn't even apply for that. I was somebody that was awarded it. I was a part of that through that way. So she's right. I mean, just because, you know, it's kind of like making the best out of what you have. So I feel like even though it's a little bit limited right now, that's a way that it can be spread to different people. Like, you know, so even though there's more artists budding, I don't think that could ever be a bad thing. Like, there's no such thing as too much art. Like I said, all the places I named earlier that you go, it's everywhere. There's art all over the place. And guess what? All those people are thriving. You know, so I don't think that having too many people that do something cool is a bad thing ever. You know, I mean, it only would inspire more people to do it. And I think that's always gonna kind of be the chain reaction of it. And I mean, there is, like, you can look at both sides. Like, you know, even though he said, like, in Lafayette, hip hop is not the most popular genre, but it's actually the most popular genre in the world, like in the whole world. Like, so, I mean, that wasn't the case 50 years ago when it came out. Hip hop just celebrated a 50-year anniversary. That wasn't the case. Just like jazz was once frowned upon as being this devil's music, whatever. Like, you know, so I think, like, you know, it's one of those things where when I was 15 and I started rapping and doing music, it was like still kind of a like not as popular thing. So like I might have been the person that people knew that did that, but now people might know 30 people that do it. So you could say like something's oversaturated or whatever, but I mean, I think the cream of the crop is always gonna stand out amongst whatever. So nothing can really take away from anything. And everybody's art is different. Even if we do the same thing, even if we do a similar style, I'm a different person than him. So even though we're a group and we do the same exact thing, there's some people that like me as their favorite person in the group, and there's some people that like him as their favorite person. So I think that goes just in general for like the art community. There can never really be too much, and I think having more and more would actually maybe encourage more programs like ArtSpark, and you know, more places opening up that do things like that, and eventually then there would be just as the opportunities would just be just as abundant as the amount of people looking for the opportunities, I think.
I see Kathy's got it. I just want to say, our education director at ACA says this every time we kind of grow our arts education work into a new area, a new school, new parish. She says, you know, once they have the experience, they're going to start asking for it. Yes. Like, more builds demand for more. Higher quality builds an expectation for a higher quality. Innovation builds an expectation and a desire to be surprised. And when it's, you know, Disneyland or same old, it, you know, it does de-elevate that. And that's why Kathy has been holding the microphone. And Josiah.
Just real quick, I just wanted to touch on it from a theater perspective. There are a ton of new theater companies popping up in Lafayette and around the Acadiana area. which is an amazing thing. I love to see it. Especially, I'm very excited in particular about the Black Theater Experience that Leigha is opening. I am honored to be the inaugural director for this upcoming show. But I know it does get hard sometimes for us to get the support that we need, because a lot of times, you know, the theater community is a small community. We all know each other, and we all try to support each other. But when we're talking about in terms of saturation, we sometimes overlap, and then, you know, it's just hard, because in order to pay your everything, you know, everyone, to pay your director, to pay your technical director, the audio and light engineers, your crew, set designer, all that, and hopefully be able to pay your actors, it takes a lot of money, and you have to set your ticket prices. I've been seeing now that it's around $30 is the average ticket price to go see a show. And that's $60 if you go with one other person, plus taxes and fees. So, you know, my dream is to make theater more accessible in a way that that more people can come and not have to spend $100, and also to build our community to where that we're not the only ones supporting each other in the community. So that's all I say.
Well, I just want to put in a good word for, I think, an underserved population too, and that's older artists who are maybe hiding in the shadows. Maybe they're not online, they don't have social media. They have wonderful, very high quality bodies of work that are not getting shown around here because there really is a lack of galleries, serious galleries in this town. There have been times when there have been more, but I don't know what can be done about that. For the Artists Alliance, we got together and we made it happen, but I don't know what the possibilities are these days of doing such a thing. And the artists I'm talking about are not entrepreneurs. They probably have other income, and they don't have to sell their work to make a living to be able to live. But you know, they're there, and I think that because the younger population in town that runs the places that show art, visual art, may not even know who they are. So I don't, you know, that's just a problem. You said what's lacking in your notes, and you know, I don't know how to solve it, but yeah. I think it's there.
And I think definitely, yeah, like how we evolve and age, not only as individual artists, but as a community. How are the opportunities and support there so that when we do commit to this community, we feel like we can continue to evolve. I want to leave time for questions. Okay.
So about gallery spaces, so when I was out in California a few years back, someone wrote for a grant, and it was Modesto. And so, but rather than have empty storefronts, because they had empty storefronts, we were able to really come up with a plan, working with the owners of those spaces, where they would let us use those spaces and have exhibitions. We had a student-run gallery downtown there, and it was very, very successful. So maybe that's something, I don't know, Mandi, I don't know, maybe that's something we could see to get that out. That's
Get on that, Mandi.
No, you know I don't mean it that way, man. But in terms of the business community, you know, rather than having it sit, you know, derelict and empty, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Claire and I keep looking at each other, making eye contact, because we have a running conversation with our current
new mayor, who has a great appreciation for the arts across the board, about how to really just show off the creativity that lives in our people. So we have a running conversation, and we're chomping at the bit to put some things into action in and around Lafayette. And I have to keep it real. It's gonna cost money, so we're putting our heads together about funding sources, et cetera, because, you know, we have to go compete for funds from some of the same people that are looking for funding for their water and sewer systems and their roads and bridges and fiber, et cetera. And so that's why those numbers I rattled off, which were local, and I thank you for sharing the national numbers, those are important. Because then we go to the people with the purse strings and say, this is why. And then we tell the human side of the story too. So, oh, trust me, we're taking notes. Y'all might have thought I was texting. I was not. I have a notepad on my phone. I forgot my pen in my car.
Thank you. Okay, Leigha, and then we'll open it for questions.
Yeah, I think, and I feel like no artist ever lacks creativity. We always lack funding. Funding is always the number one thing that we don't have access to that allows us to give more, to present better, adequate work, to even be in a collaborative spirit, right? Because if we are applying for the same funding that is not an astronomical amount of money, but this small amount of money is going to, in some way, penetrate this project that I have, right? It makes me think of collaboration a little less because there's not so much to go around. And so it's this conversation of how do we increase funding? Because I always say, if I had more money, I can do X, Y, and Z. And I feel like a lot of artists feel like that. If we had more money, we can do more. So it's like, how do we get access to more funding for programming for artists here in our community, you know?
And I think to say one example, and then first question. Yes. First question. Just to use dance splits as an example. So that's a project that Leigha and I have been working on with the ACA. And it's a way that we as artists who also run spaces are saying, like, we want to make work. It's hard to do that and run a space. But you also want to feel mirrored in that way, to say, hey, I'm not alone in doing that. And so the ACA has been a wonderful partner and finding some funding. We're working on it. Mandi, no, I'm just kidding. But so we're creating two individual works. So we're collaborating, but we're still maintaining our artistic autonomy to a degree. But we're being able, it's motivating, it's elevating. I know for me, it's saying, ooh, okay, I'm sharing a show with Leigha. Like, I want to present my best foot forward. And then, consequently, I think we're both going to be compelled to make something really exciting. And then now we have two new works coming out of this immediate community with dancers from this region. So you think it's going to sell out? Yeah, right? Y'all better buy a ticket.
September 13th and 14th.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's an example. That was a very quiet house. Go down, Audrey will say a ticket. But I think that where we can be collaborative, it doesn't always mean putting all the ideas around the same table where you feel like your voice is going to become diluted or things like that. It's about how can structures be collaborative, or how can people and structures connect to where the ideas are retained as your individual artist perspective, but you feel like you can bring things up. Questions, Miss Grace?
Actually, I don't have a question. I have what may be a solution. I consider myself an educated artist who is also an entrepreneur. I went to a conference, a BIPOC conference, and I'm so excited to see so many young people of color. When I started in the arts 43 years ago at ACA, which was not called ACA at the time, there were no people of color in the room but me. So this is really exciting for me, y'all, to see you guys at the table. It's 43 years, but we're here. But anyway, that conference, we were called artspreneurs. And I think one of the things that should happen and could happen is our young artists that UL is educating to marry the triangle. She just left. Too bad. You have Mandi. Okay.
Mandi's right there.
Oh, Oh, there you are. So I think you have the economics of that's necessary for young artists, because I was a guest lecturer at UL in the dance department. One of the things that I spoke to those young dancers about is that you are an entrepreneur. And they looked at me like, huh? I was like, baby, you gotta be able to fund your career. You have to be able to know how to fund your career. And I think one of the things maybe somewhere in the education part of it, married with the economics part of it, married with what you do in terms of presenting good artists, is teaching the young people how to also be entrepreneurs. Because when there is no space, what I had to do 43 years ago was create it for myself. I applied for lots of grants and had great programming, but didn't get it. So what I did was I used my business background to create my own successful business that has always been self-funded and self-sustainable. And so I think young people need to know that they are artists first, but they are also artspreneurs. And we have to be able to teach young artists both sides of the brain. We got to use both sides of the brain, because we have to produce good art, but we have to know how to read financial statements, write grants, understand fiscal responsibility. And so I think the answer to your question is education with economics with the arts. And those three things together can make this community thrive, so that young people like the two of you don't have to leave because you can't sustain yourself here. So that's my 2 bits. Thank you.
That was my wrap up. You just did it. It's going to save on time.
This is directed at Leigha again. I'm sorry, you keep getting singled. While I think that philanthropy is an extremely important part of the arts, I think it dominates the conversation too much, and that I would like more of a shift when talking to businesses, not necessarily what can businesses do for the arts, telling them that what arts can do for the businesses. For an example, me painting a mural on a business's wall is not doing me a favor. It's beautifying the business's wall. So I think businesses should be clamoring, knocking each other down to compete with each other, to make their buildings, their spaces, their offerings the best that they can provide for the community. And I think artists are taxed with the bearers of that too much, more than I'd like to see. So I'm not totally familiar with how much of that conversation Leigha actually has with businesses, but I have over the years been to too many events where it's constantly, what can we do for the arts? You know, and it's, you know, I think there needs to be a balance in that. Absolutely.
I would love to come to work in this kind of room every day.
You can, Mandi. Yeah, we have a job opening.
Yeah.
We can't afford you, but.
Maybe we have 1 or 2 more before we pass it over to Sam for closing. And yeah, let's do that.
Hi, thank you. My name is Gail Leslie. I'm a singer, songwriter, poet, actress, and most recently a playwright. Now, I have questions for a few of you. Miss Mandi, the Louisiana Music Scoring Initiative. Let me ask you this question without going into a lot of detail. Is there a way to contact you to find out more about this?
Sam is the man.
Who's Sam?
I just made a commercial.
Okay.
Sam is the man. So Leigha's involvement was helping to craft the application, facilitating connections to the granting agency, which is Louisiana Economic Development, which oversees film,
tax credits, a portion of that was carved out to reinvest in building up industries adjacent to film development. And so the ACA partnered up with a local, what is the proper title, Trey, for Adam? Thank you, composer. Brain freeze. A composer to put this together, and we were able to help get that funded. So it is in its very infancy, but the vision is to have local musicians to come together and participate in scoring for films. So it has a lot of work to be done, I think, to build this thing up. But first steps first is, yay, we got the grant money from the state after a long back and forth. So,
and I'm happy to talk about that after if you want to discuss.
I have another question, and this one's also for you, Mandi. You
don't want the panel?
And if I'm crossing over after having heard what you said, pardon me. Lafayette Entertainment Initiative. Is that in conjunction with the Louisiana Music Scoring Initiative?
I think are you referring back to CREATE? Was it the acronym CREATE Initiative? That's a long conversation. That was two mayors ago, and I would love for the current mayor to bring it back. Long conversation.
Okay. Okay. Oh, only one question?
Yeah, we're really going to move on this.
Okay.
This will be a loss.
All right. I got one for the panel. My panel.
Go, Dirk.
All right. So I think that in general, as artists, we all feel very valuable to ourselves and, of course, anybody that we touch and all that stuff. And then, I see the numbers on the state level compared to other states as per capita of like how much money is funded toward the arts. And let's just say that we all know where we want the bar of value of our artists to be compared to where it's at. How do you see us getting there and moving the bar forward where it needs to be to sustain our artists, to keep our artists, and to be truly cherished as an asset, as what we all know art is?
In the state of Louisiana, you're talking? In Lafayette.
I think it's about disciplining the conversation around what is the actual return on investment. If you can describe the return and describe it well and describe it financially and emotionally, what it does for a community, what it does for a business, what is the return, then you can have a real conversation about return on investment. We spend a lot of time talking about just the investment without truly describing the return. We're saying, well, we need more money for this or that or whatever. And for the audience that has the ability to make those decisions, whether it's in philanthropy for truly significant catalytic support, or whether it's in state and local government when they're looking at, the use of public funds and going through, being accountable to their voters, their districts, or when it comes to just a business, when you're asking for that investment towards beautification of a space or, whatever it might be. What is the return? And I'm a big believer in the double bottom line of return on investment. There is and will be a financial return. Hopefully that return isn't $0 back for the money you put in. So describe the financial return. What is it? It makes, there is a return in some way. Describe it. But the other side of that bottom line is, what are the other true impacts? Is it an impact on the appearance of the community and reflection of yourself in it? Is it an impact on a younger generation and young people being inspired to participate? Whether they end up, whether or not they are inspired to participate specifically as a dancer for the rest of their life, they are inspired to participate beyond being stuck in one, in one way that life could be, and they can imagine many, many, many different possibilities. So to me, what it truly comes down to, and what we need to discipline our field around and all of ourselves around, and we need to build a true conversation around, is what is the return? What is the return we want? Once we have that conversation and truly set some values behind that, I think the investment comes.
And you got to lead with that. We typically lead with passion as creative folks, right? We got all this passion and creativity, but we have to lead with that. Sam's got it exactly right. And we've got that information. We've got that data. Mandi gave you some locally. I gave you some, nationally. That's absolutely correct.
I think that's where we need the most institutional help.
Yeah.
I can go out and be a salesman all I want, but nobody's going to take me seriously citing thousands and thousands of the economic studies that correlate detritus with poor communities and elevated communities. I'm sorry, I don't really like talking into microphones. I'm kind of loud.
It's for recording purposes, so for recording purposes, we'll need the microphone.
Okay. The thousands and thousands of economic studies that have been done having direct correlations with beautification of communities, with investment in the arts and communities, investment in your own business and making your own business look better, and those things. So, like I was saying before, the philanthropy part is great, but we need the educational aspect working directly with businesses and with the residents of the community to give us legitimacy in explaining the value. An artist, of course, is going to explain how valuable we are. We all love what we do, but it only matters more when it's coming from institutions.
But
And that's schools and museums and
I mean, the economic development organizations, the chambers of commerce, from the political leaders. I mean, those are great opportunities for, if those, the people in the many different seats that have other kinds of voice pieces and are in the conversations around the future and vitality of the community. We're blessed with somebody like Mandi who truly understands the impact in one of those seats, and a mayor who's very supportive newly in her role. But there's so many opportunities for those people to reiterate that message to their audiences in ways that could truly be transformative, I think is what you're saying.
Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you. I'm not always operating on the macro level that you describe, but a microcosm of this, and it also, I was reminded of it by what Mo was describing earlier about Lafayette. It's like I participate in different art forms in New Orleans at Acadiana, for instance, and there are things I've done in New Orleans for over a decade that I don't always have the opportunity to do here. I'm trying to create those opportunities, and I've had some assistance creating those opportunities. For instance, I had a show of original works and original works of my bandmates at Solo Violins recently, and with no acumen for marketing or beautification of a city or whatever, or any of these thoughts that you've been describing very well earlier, it could have just been, a sit-down show in a fiddle shop, and I don't move for an hour, and I just listen to this instrumental music, and some people just don't know what to do with that. And it takes some energy and some collaboration between the shop owner, the audio engineer I bring in, the musicians, the audience members, and say like, there's an aspiring composer in Lafayette who makes me coffee at Rev pretty often, and he's good. He's hungry. And I was like, hey man, I want you to come with some friends. It's on me, whatever. Get the young people in there, talk to the shop owner, tell people what she's got going on at the fiddle shop. Say, we have this resource. We have an opportunity to have beautiful shop concerts on Jefferson Street in the middle. Like, how cool is that? That's one opportunity for just a cool thing happening in a town, brings people downtown, exposes them to other things. Oh, what is this instrumental music? I don't know what to do with that. That's okay if you don't know what to do with it. Come check it out. Like, it might introduce you to some crowds you've never met or an experience that you haven't had. Just making it attractive and going the extra step to explain to them, it's okay if you don't quite understand, but here's something interesting that you might not have known. And also having an opportunity to bring all of these disciplines together in a very small space to experience something intimate. And you know, whether it's the macro or the very micro, you know, it's an opportunity to remind each other of what we're all up to, and you can really create some cool collaborative spaces, you know, everywhere, consistently. Like you said, we have all this talent.
And when you add that up, it is felt, it is seen.
I think what I hear is you describing the importance of education in the creative ecosystem. And you know, Kathy talked a lot earlier about being a visual arts educator in a K-12 public school. And my role at the university is teach visual specialists for that role, specifically in public schools. And developing an early disposition for creative literacy is hugely important. And putting specialists in public schools is, you know, my area of focus and I think I see that as being a huge component to just exposure at an early age, and you know, preparing students to understand the value, to you know, your point about disciplining the conversation around it. We also have to provide a literacy skill set, and I see that as you know, existing in school spaces, right? And so that's sort of my area of focus, and I think this is a hugely important and impactful area to have arts with an S specialist, not just visual specialist, in public school spaces. And yeah.
And to add to that, I think what Ms. Gray said, and then what you said earlier too, like about, like, you know, what's the return on investment? Like, that's what some of these people are looking at. They're like, okay, you need this much, but like, what do I get back? You know, like, it has to make sense on both ends. So I think, like, just making it more known to people, like the resources that we do have for artists. Like, I participate, it's not necessarily for artists, but I did participate in Accelerating Artside. It was a 6-week program. They fed us, they showed us all different types of knowledge about running a business, entrepreneurial knowledge, like things like that are like very valuable. And like, not every artist naturally has an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, you know, we're blessed to where we kind of naturally wear many hats like that, but not everybody does, you know. And so it's like, those people need help too. So I feel like just making those resources more obvious for people, and, you know, as it grows, I feel like there would be more and more resources of somebody that you can go sit down with and say, like, hey, I'm an artist, I have the talent, I have the skills, I have the plans, I have it all laid out, but like, how do I present this in a way to an investor to make it make sense? You know, like, what terminology do I need to use? What facts do I need to present? You know, like, things like that. And I just think in general, as that grows, businesses would see the value of it, because it would actually become the culture here. You know, like, look at Festival International. I keep bringing it up, but it's like, it's my favorite week of the year. You know, it's like, everybody goes, like, for the most part. Everybody that enjoys art and stuff like that, they go and participate in that. You know, we've done shows in Denver where it was just local artists only, like local people that, for all intents and purposes, not many people have heard of, and it was sold out, a sold out event. You know, like, some places that's just the culture to go check out a show, go do this, go do that, you know, and that's like what people do. All my friends that live in Denver, every week they go to a concert. They're always at shows, they're at art shows, they're doing stuff like that. It's part of the culture. So we have a lot of that here, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who don't even know about some of the artistic things taking place here. I rode in an Uber with a lady the other day who was like 50-something years old, and she told me she's been to Festival International one time at the first one. I was like, what? Like, so just stuff like that. You know, there's people Ed works with that didn't know that Festival International existed, and they live in Lafayette. Like, what? What's going on? You know, but I just think for some people, it's like, it's one of those, like they say, if you know, you know. So if you're, you know, it's not necessary. It's as much as it's an artistic hub, it's not necessarily the culture out here for people to go check out shows and go do stuff like that for everybody. It's one of those things where if you do it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. But I feel like, you know, if more, like Ms. Gray said, just the combination of the artistic aspect, the educational aspect, and the financial aspect, like that marriage would actually solve everything, honestly, because, you know, if the artists can be educated on how to present their idea or whatever it is they need to do to whoever can help them financially, or either be educated on how they can make it happen on their own financially, I really think that with it being more abundant in the area, it would become the culture. And so then you wouldn't have to be so worried about, okay, I'm throwing an event, am I gonna make my money back? Like, you know, like you would be like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna make my money back. That's the thing here. People go do stuff like that. So it's kind of like, you know, it's a financial thing, it's a business thing, but it's also it's a soul thing, you know. So like when you experience art, when you hear a song that you really love, it's almost like it's like addictive. It's like, I want to feel like that again, how I felt when I heard that song. It felt so good that I've listened to it 100 times. I've looked at this piece 100 times. I've watched this movie 100 times because it made me feel something. So if we can just combine all that, I really think just the feeling that people would get from experiencing these things, it would make people want to experience it more, and then it would make it to where it can be the norm here to thrive as an artist, you know.
Thank you so much. Okay, we are short on time, so I'm going to pass
Want me
it
to wrap it up?
Sam. Bring us home. I call Sam the mayor of Art Town, and this is Art City Hall. So the mayor of Art Town, we are so lucky to have this Art City Hall and to have you as our leader. So bring it on home.
Well, this is going to even be an interactive wrap up, because I think I've said truly what I want to say, and I think that the best part of something like this is because we live together, work together, collaborate, we will build what comes next. We have the opportunity to build it together. So let's make the to-do list. What's at the top of the list? You get one item each.
Top of the list. I'll say educating artists on how they can just like whatever their particular thing is they do, just educating them on how they can take that a step further to where they can start finding success. It's a long process, but just to start.
I think we need a local festival, just locals, local art, local music, local everything, at the same scale of Festival International.
We need to be more knowledgeable about the impact that the arts have now and has had on the advancement of local communities, the societies in general, but with real information, and make sure that every time we have an opportunity, and even before somebody opens their mouth and says something negative about the arts, because it happens often, to make sure that we respond and we hit them with some knowledge, so they'll know better than to do that next time.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, consistent, like persistent, aggressive education to like appreciators of art, young artists, students, about what is possible when we combine our skills and when we take advantage of the spaces that we have in creative ways, just to spark the hunger, like y'all were saying earlier, just like show them what's possible, make them hungry for it, spark their imagination so they can show us what's next at some point, you know.
And this is my to-do list, so practical is good too. There we go.
Yeah, so keeping the youngsters involved with art as well as the adults or the elderly as well. Yeah.
We can't have education without really great, high-quality teachers. So my ticket item is funding and facilities for high-quality arts specialists in P16 public education spaces.
My ticket item is opening up more venues for critical discourse about art. Like Basin Arts does it once a month, but that's really not enough. Not everybody can go that particular day of the week and day of the month. But having more opportunities and more places that will host gatherings to have real critiques.
Just more funding, increased funding, and I would say more education for the general public on why art is important. Because we need to educate our artists, but we also need to educate the individuals who we want to reach as well. And so they need to know why this work we do is important.
To continue to cultivate community and get everybody on the same page and excited, and to continue having conversations like this with a panel that looks like this and not just like one type of person from different backgrounds. Yeah, let's continue to do that.
I'm going to say more artists at more tables that are not arts tables. So thinking about, when we think about economic development and civic leadership, valuing the artist's perspective and how they think and how they dream and how they make things happen, sometimes with nothing. Those are all skills that a community, a civic leader, an economic leader can value. So, artists and roads and bridges conversations or whatever, but things like that.
Well, I certainly hope someone wrote all of that down.
I got one more though, Sam.
Oh yeah.
I got one more.
You got a to-do?
To-do that you can do in a few minutes. Go downstairs and you go listen to Daryl Bork give a poetry reading in the Arts and Education studio. Be inspired. And then go see Jesse Palmbuth, who's in his 53rd year of showcasing his art in galleries. So to Kathy's point earlier, you can go be inspired by that, but then I'll let Sam wrap it up.
But I mean, we'll take that literally as a to-do list. So, I hope you know that that's why the Acadiana Center for the Arts is here. That's why we build strong relationships with our institutional partners around the region, is to elevate those conversations. So this is the to-do list. Gwen and Anna will be to-doing a lot of this stuff, and I'll be working with them. But I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. Recognize Anna Kojevnikov, Community Development Manager, putting this together with Jake Falk and Gwen Richard. Wrap it up, Anna.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming today and for this discussion. It was really important to have. Thank you, Clare, for moderating this. We do have some drinks, some refreshments. If anybody would like to stick around and ask more questions, we're going to be around for a little bit longer, but I do understand that we are kind of a little over time, so if anybody needs to run off, I totally understand. But thank you, and we're going to do this again next year, so come back.